Hey guys, Matt Scott here. If you don't know me, I am the author of the political spy thriller series Surviving the Lion's Den. My latest novel, The Ayatollah Takedown, came out in March of 2023, so it's still available. As both a reader and a writer, I think it's our responsibility to read books by our peers and give them a shout out when it's due for the best books list that come out at the end of the year. So without further ado, here's my list of the best books I've read in 2023. Now I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to throw in some nonfiction books. I'm going to throw in some books by some established authors whose books I hadn't read before. They're maybe a little bit older. Then I'm going to do some new release books by authors who are established, whose books did come out in 2023. And then I'm going to give a shout out to my friends, my fellow friends who had debut novels come out this year that were definitely worth mentioning. So without further ado, let's get started. So I start with the nonfiction. So the first nonfiction book I would like to recommend is With Great Power by Sean O'Connell. Now, this is a book about how Spider-Man conquered Hollywood and how it changed the perception of superhero movies and how it handled itself during the golden age of comic books. Now, I had the privilege of meeting Sean here in Charlotte when this book came out, I think 2 years ago. He had just written a book about the Zack Snyder Justice League cut, which is a story all in itself. But Sean is the managing editor at Cinema Blend, and he also is the co-host of an entertainment website on YouTube. I think it's called Real Blend. So be sure to check it out. He always has good interviews with actors and let you know what's going on in the movie scene. But this book, With Great Power, is definitely should not be missed. And he has an upcoming book called Unbreakable. I think it's going to be coming out this year. That's about the films of Bruce Willis. So given the unfortunate circumstances surrounding Bruce Willis and his dementia, I think it's going to be a book that is going to be treasured when it comes out. All right, so the next book is a book that's actually been out for about 10 years, I think, but it's called Hitler's Last Witness. So this is the story of Hitler's bodyguard and what happened, what he witnessed in the final days of Hitler. Now, I kind of bought this a little bit on a whim, I guess, because I had just seen the film Downfall, which depicted the last days of Hitler in the bunker, how he killed himself, what happened afterwards, and I loved the movie so much that I was like, look, I gotta find a book about this and see, just how accurate it was, and it was incredibly accurate, and it is just, I think, nail-biting from the standpoint of, these events actually happened, and to be able to read about it by someone who was actually witnessed what happened in those last days in April 1945, not to miss. So Hitler's Last Witness. Next one, anybody who knows me knows I'm a little bit of an Elvis fan, so I really enjoyed the Elvis movie that came out with Austin Butler, but there's always a lot of mystery around the man who called himself Colonel Tom Parker, who was neither a colonel nor Tom nor Parker. He just kind of adapted that name from somebody he met along the way. And this book by Alana Nash is called The Colonel, and it is about his time with Elvis Presley, and it kind of dives into who exactly Colonel Tom Parker was, both as a person and a businessman, who I wouldn't have trusted to tie my shoes. But it is a very in-depth look at the man who was Colonel Tom Parker. So be sure to check it out. Next one, I know Bill O'Reilly is not a very popular figure in a lot of circles, but his Killing series started off with a big bang, with Killing Lincoln, Killing Kennedy. I think a couple of them, you talk about Killing the Rising Sun and Killing Britain and Killing Reagan. I wasn't really all that impressed with those books, but Killing the Witches, about the Salem witch trials, this one is darn good, and I think he's gotten back on track with this one. So I would really recommend Bill O'Reilly's Killing Witches. And the last one is one that I won't call it dear to my heart, but having written multiple books about Iran, any book that comes out about, the Ayatollah regime and the presidents of Iran who, guard, Ayatollah Khomeini's dream and, kind of protect it, covet it in the most despicable fashions possible, is always going to be good. So, Guardians of the Revolution by Ray Tekia. All right, so let's go on to some older novels by some established authors. I do apologize to these authors for just now getting to these books, but my to be read pile is a mile high, so it's taken me some time, but it definitely ended up being worth it. So the first one up is going to be Jack Carr's In the Blood. Now, Jack, I apologize to you. I know Only the Dead is your current novel, but like I said, it's taken me a while to get to In the Blood, just because I've been writing my other novels, but this one does not disappoint. This one is about James Reese goes to try and track down the killer of a Mossad agent who he was close with when he was in the field, and it just continues to prove that Jack Carr is not only one of the best authors out in the thriller genre today, but that his character James Reese has got a lot to offer, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it as the Terminal List series continues on Amazon, because he's an executive producer on the show and writer on the show, so he makes sure that the books and the TV series continues in a way that honors the books. So great job, Jack. Next one has been out for a couple years, but What Lies Between Us by John Mars. This one is, I actually can't give away too much about it because I think I would spoil it if I did, but I gotta say it's one of the best mystery novels that I've ever read, and it has a very slow build, but it comes out with a bang at the end, and anyone who reads this novel will not regret it. Now, the next one is Book of the Dead by Patricia Cornwell. And this one's been out for a number of years. I got it at a used bookstore, but one of the things Patricia Cornwell does very well is choosing the titles of her book. I mean, Book of the Dead. I mean, can you really think of a better title than that? And this one is based in Charleston. So I've had the pleasure of corresponding back and forth with Miss Cornwell on Twitter a number of times, and I can tell you that if she is as sweet in person as she is to me on Twitter, then she's going to get a bottle of champagne from me one day, just because she has been a true treat to dialogue with. And Book of the Dead is another knockout book in the Scarpetta series, so I would definitely recommend that one. Now, this one actually came up. This next one came up because of us. I saw it on social media. Creepers by David Morrell. Now, David Morrell, as everybody knows or should know at this point, he did the original First Blood book that Sylvester Stallone ended up making into a movie in the Rambo series. So that kind of put him on the map in terms of the Hollywood stature. But he's done a number of other novels. Probably 50 at this point, if I had to know. But Creepers, I'm a little bit of a sucker, and for I won't call this one a horror novel, but it's definitely got some scares in it, and I like a book that can scare me. And Creepers is actually going to be a movie coming out next year, so it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But like I said, he was advertising this on Twitter, and it was one of those books that I just couldn't resist, and it ended up being worth its weight in gold. So definitely check out Creepers. The last one is, I'm actually ashamed to admit, I had not read C.J. Box before. I'd always heard about him, but I wasn't really sure if it was, his books were up my alley or not. And then I went to BoucherCon, and I saw the interview that the people who managed BoucherCon had with him. And one of the books that came out in the course of that interview was The Highway. And the lady who was interviewing, and I'm afraid I can't remember her name, but she was talking about how scary a book of it really was. Now, it's not scary in terms of, a horror novel, but it is about, a serial killer who is a truck driver. So again, don't want to give away too much because if I do, it might take away from the thrills you get reading it. But CJ Box, this was my first novel of yours to read. I'm ashamed that I'm a little late to the game, but nonetheless, you knocked it out of the park. So I really recommend this one. All right, now we're going to talk about some of the books from guys that have new releases this year, but are very established authors. So the first one was Michael Connelly, Resurrection Walk. I was a big fan of The Crossing book that came out a number of years ago, which was a crossover between the Bosch series and the Mickey Haller Lincoln Lawyer series. They've kind of interacted a little bit here and there in some of his novels that came out after that. But this one is kind of back to The Crossing, that type of interaction. You know, Bosch works for Mickey Haller and trying to find the true killer of his client. So Michael Connelly continues to rack them up. So Resurrection Walk, be sure to check it out. Next one is Downrange from Taylor Moore. Now, I was hoping to get to meet Taylor Moore at BoucherCon. Unfortunately, he was not able to attend because his new novel was coming out. But he and I interacted on Twitter a number of times, and just a truly great guy. And when you talk about a book about his character, former DEA agent interacting in the plains of West Texas, the plains of Texas, I guess I should say. It tends to surprise you in ways that you don't expect when you're used to reading about agents who used to work for the FBI, CIA, things like that. And Downrange ended up pleasantly surprising me, and I think you will be surprised by it too. So definitely check out Downrange. Next one up was Alice Feeney's Good Bad Girl. I have a little bit of a story with Miss Feeney. So I was reading Daisy Darker at the time, which is one of her previous novels, and I saw her at BoucherCon, and in a very strange way, I saw her exiting the ladies' restroom, and I tried not to make myself seem like a stalker, but I did recognize her, and walked up to her and told her about how much I was liking Daisy Darker, and asked her for a picture, and she was so kind, and I just could not resist finishing Daisy Darker and going on to Good Bad Girl. So Alice Feeney she's one of those authors that no matter what she writes, she seems to top herself each time it comes out. So definitely check out Good Bad Girl. Now the next one is from somebody who I think is the next big star in the thriller genre, T.J. Newman, Drowning. Now, when her first book came out, I won't say that I was disappointed by it, but there was so much hype around it that I just think by the time that I got to it, her first novel, Falling, I just don't think there was any way it could live up to the hype that had been put around it, at least for me. So it was a good book, but I just didn't fall in love with it. And I wasn't sure about Drowning just because sometimes when an author goes into their second novel, you're not sure it might be as good as the first, just because, like musicians, authors have had their entire life to write their first novel. So the second novel, might have a little bit of a sophomore slump. This one did not, folks. I mean, I'm telling you, she's got a movie deal going on right now. I don't know when it's going to come out. And I think it's going to combine Falling and Drowning, if I heard correctly online. But man, I tell you what, Don Winslow said that this reads like Apollo 13 underwater, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, she knocked it out of the park with this one, folks. So be sure to check out T.J. Newman. Next one, this one's kind of a little dear to my heart, just because I was a Vince Flynn fan from the beginning, and when Kyle Mills took over the role, with I think the name of his first book was The Survivor. Yeah, The Survivor. He just got everything that was Mitch Rapp, and those are hard shoes to fill from Vince Flynn. Now, I'll be honest with you. During the course of Kyle Mills' tenure as Mitch Rapp's author, I didn't love every book that he wrote about it, but like I said, he just not only understood what Mitch Rapp was, but he took it and evolved the character in a way that I think would make Vince very proud. And it certainly made, as a reader and a fan of the series, made us proud to see, what it was that he was doing with the Mitch Rapp character. And I'm sad to say that Kyle Mills will be leaving the Vince Flynn series. This is his last book, Code Red. Don Bentley will be taking over the series. But Kyle, I got to tell you, it's been a true pleasure reading your novels under the Vince Flynn umbrella. And gonna miss you. And Code Red was a really great swan song for you. You may come back to the series, I don't know. But if you don't, Code Red was a great way to go out. So thank you very much. Next one is from the person who I consider to be the heavyweight champion of the political spy thriller series, Brad Thor, Rising Tiger. I mean, this guy, he somehow just manages to stay ahead of the headlines, and Rising Tiger is no exception. It's kind of funny. His first book was The Lions of Lucerne, and now he's talking about Rising Tiger. So the marketing campaign was from lions to tigers, which I thought was pretty clever. And Rising Tiger, he just continues to surprise us and keep us thrilled. And Brad Thor, Rising Tiger, I mean, I want to tell you guys so much about this book, but I just can't. I'm trying to make this as short a video as I can. But Rising Tiger, Brad Thor, 2 thumbs up, man. You nailed it. The last couple books, Daniel Silva, The Collector. I actually had the privilege of meeting Daniel Silva in Charlotte when he was here on his book tour, and I went up to him and I told him that, our books, my last book, Ayatollah Takedown, and his book, Collector, have something in common in that, they both feature pieces of artwork that were stolen from the Isabella Gardner Museum heist in Boston in 1990. And he kind of, his eyes kind of opened. He's like, oh, really? And fortunately, I gave him a copy of the novel. I hope he will give my book a chance and read it. And as a dreamer that I am, I hope that I'll hear words of praise from him one day. But if it doesn't, that's okay, because he accepted the book anyway. And The Collector was just, I honestly think it's his best book. I really do. Now there's a number of other things that go on in the book. You'll have to find out for yourself. But The Collector, I think it's his best novel in the series. I really do. Last 2 I have are, this one is from someone that I had not read before, hadn't even heard of before, but I had the pleasure of meeting Tessa Weggert at BoucherCon this year. I was talking to my good friend Steve Yerzeni, and he was actually meeting up with Tessa, and here she comes walking towards me, and the first thing that hit me was, this lady is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, Steve said, asked me to kind of wait here while he was going to get a table. I'm like, okay, no problem. I'll stay here with the gorgeous blonde, no problem. And she and I got to talking just a little bit for a few minutes, and I knew that The Devil's Door, her newest book, was coming out late this fall. I think it just came out in December. Santa Claus actually gave this to me for a Christmas present, and I surely was not disappointed. And if you have not read Tessa, please pick up her, not only The Devil's Door, but pick up her other novels, as I will. And I guarantee you that as gorgeous as she is, she's an even better writer. So definitely check out Tessa Weggert. Last book was by an author that I have read before and enjoyed her novels before, but she came out with a different type of novel this time, and it's called The Spy Coast by Tess Garrison. Now, Tess Garrison, as many of you may know, did the Rizzoli and Isles series. It was made into a TV series but it was a bunch of books before it was the TV series. And she's done a couple of standalone novels, and I think this one will probably end up being a standalone. But she lives in Maine, and a lot of CIA spies, for whatever reason, retire in Maine. And she came up with a really good story about retired spies, and it is one of the best books of the year. I guarantee you. Please check out The Spy Coast by Tess Garrison. Now, I'd like to give you guys a couple of book recommendations by people who are a little bit newer to the industry, and I've had the pleasure of meeting, I think all of them. Yeah, I've met all of them, either at BoucherCon or a few months after. So, without further ado, these are some really good books by lesser-known authors that will certainly become the next big thing in the series or in the genre, in the literary world. So I would highly recommend these. So the first one is Shadow Sanction by my good buddy Steve Stratton. He writes a novel. He used to be a Secret Service agent, and he's had another some career in the military and things like that. And this one is his Lance Bear Wolf novel. It's actually the second in the series. The first one was called Shadow Tear, but this one really talks about, the war on drugs, which has been, a fight, dating back, decades. And I think he's really gotten onto something. I think his publisher went out of business, so he's getting the rights back, and he's getting ready to come out with a novella on the Lance Bear Wolf, so people can know a little bit more about him. But Shadow Sanction was top notch, so I would definitely recommend checking Steve out. Now, the next one is by my friend Jack Stewart. Now, Jack used to be a Top Gun instructor, and he takes upon his experiences and writes about them, uses them in Unknown Rider. It is his debut novel, and I mean, can you really not read a book by a former Top Gun instructor? I mean, everybody just, as soon as you hear Top Gun, everybody thinks, Tom Cruise, Maverick, that type of thing. But this guy manages to put Top Gun in a book. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, sign me up. Pre-order now. And it did not disappoint. I cannot wait to see what Jack comes up with as more of his novels come out. He's going to be one of the big names on the thriller genre for years to come, I think. So definitely check out Jack Stewart, Unknown Rider. Now, next book is another from a guy I also met at BoucherCon. Probably one of the most friendly guys I've ever met, and it is by Steve Yerzini at Perfect Shot. It is his debut novel. It says on the cover, by Mark Greaney. He says starts fast and finishes faster, and I couldn't agree more. Debut novels, you're either a hit or you're not. And I'll leave for you guys to decide which category I fall in. But as for Steve, like Jack Stewart, he's gonna be a star. He really is. And I met him at BoucherCon. We struck up a conversation at the bar, and it was one of those relationships that I think, that I think and I hope will continue for years to come, because there was just a click between us in terms of, the way we write and what we think about when we write. And he told me a little bit about his book when I met him at BoucherCon, and as soon as he gave me the pitch, I pre-ordered it and couldn't wait for it to come out. And it did not let me down. It is really a true work of gold. So definitely check out Perfect Shot by Steve Yerzini. The next one is from a lady who I had been paying attention to on social media, Instagram and Twitter, mostly Instagram. But she was in Myrtle Beach at the same time I took my vacation a couple of weeks ago, and I ran into her really by chance. She was doing a signing at a bar, and that is The Syndicate Spy by Brittany Butler. Now, she used to be a targeting officer at the CIA. So anytime real life people who worked at the CIA, end up writing novels, to me, it's a must read. And this one is no exception. You can really feel the real life experience that she had come out in the plot of her novel. And I think that I think she's got a movie deal working on this one. I'm not sure. But I think that's what I read somewhere online. But once she gets that deal, assuming she gets that deal, she's going to be a breakout star, and you're going to see a lot more come from Brittany Butler in Charleston, who lives in Charleston. I would definitely check out The Syndicate Spy. Now, the last book, which I am really calling my book of the year, comes from another lady who used to be in the CIA, and that is I.S. Berry. Her name is Alana Berry, but it says I.S. Berry on the novel, and it's called The Peacock and the Sparrow. And she also used to work at the CIA. I met her at BoucherCon, and it was kind of funny, because the Peacock and the Sparrow starts out with a character, her main character, who is working in Bahrain and is kind of fighting the forces, the Iranian forces, in the Middle East. And my first novel, Surviving the Lion's Den, had a similar pattern to it, because it also started out talking about the Iranians invading Bahrain, or trying to invade Bahrain to bring it back into the Persian Empire. So we really got to talk about it. I did not get to have a chance to have a drink with her like I had intended. She probably thinks I'm the weird "let's have a beer with me" stalker guy, but there was a lot of things going on at BoucherCon, and it was my first time there. But to me, The Peacock and the Sparrow is the book of the year. So I would definitely check this one out, folks. You will not be let down. I guarantee you will not be let down. Now that about does it for the books of the year. If you want to know what's on my nightstand at current, I've got a couple, because I always read a couple books at a time. I'm a little behind on the Mark Graney Gray Man series. I read the original, and I haven't read much since then, but I ran into Mark Graney at BoucherCon, so I was fortunate to get him to sign Sierra 6 for me, so I just started this one. Now, Mark Graney, here's a little story about him. He was the first person that I met, the first big name author that I met when I went to BoucherCon. I saw him going into the free book room, and I just kind of said his name out loud, not realizing that I said it out loud. And very personal, very cool guy, and he was giving me a couple of tips on what I can do to create a little bit more exposure for myself and let people know that my novels are out in the world to be read. So I'm always grateful and appreciative to him for giving me those tips. And I enjoyed his interviews at the panels at BoucherCon, and he's one of those guys, when you talk to him, even though it's the first time you're meeting him, it always feels like you've known him for years, because that's the way he treats you. And that to me was just totally cool, because this guy has a number of novels out, and he's made movies, and be made in movies now. I mean, he could have taken BoucherCon as a formality, and it was clear he is just not that type of guy. He is one of the coolest guys I think you'll ever meet. So, working on Sierra 6 by Mark Graney, and I'm also working on The Last of the Seven by Stephen Hardoff. I got to meet Stephen by way of kind of a video Zoom call, because we both had the same publicist at the time, and it is historical fiction about World War II. I just kind of started the first couple chapters on it, but all of the praise is around it, and so far, the only things I can tell you is that I am massively impressed. This Stephen is a guy he's definitely done his homework, and he is one hell of a writer. So definitely check out The Last of the Seven by Stephen Hardoff. So that pretty much does it for me, folks. I know this has been a little bit of a long video. I hope you have enjoyed the list. I hope you'll check out some of these books. And Happy New Year, and go Knowles. Happy New Year.